Hello, my IBMOR brothers, back again in for another debate or response, as we might put it. It seems educated lame is a code word, so we have a lot of people weighing in. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I guess it is. So now we have another one of the gender war warriors from the first gender war, as they call it, coming out of the cold to weigh in. Now, I had never heard of her, but she popped up on my recommended list and I gave it a listen. And then I heard Sergeant Willie Pete give a response. Then right after that, my boy Field Master Rom gave a response. So I listened to the video in its entirety. And I understand why the old gender war was spiking up. You hear a lot of the old shaming language come out that has been tossed around for the last, 10 years or so. So for kicks and giggles, I'm going to throw my hat into the ring. I'm going to do a response to, you heard me first, if I'm not mistaken, that's what her name is. Response to her video, Educated Lames, the Ugly Girl Argument for Men. So you know what this is, especially for you guys that don't like to hear women's voices. This is going to be a response Black Gnostic style. So if you find women's voices annoying, please tune out now and save yourself the anguish.
So, actually, this whole educated lame discussion is a reboot of discussions that were had back on Gen X when that was a thing. I think Sergeant Willie Pete even discussed it before he got kicked off of YouTube the first time. I know what an educated lame was, at least back then, but I don't know if they're still going with the same definition now, because even though several YouTubers have made videos on this topic, nobody's really defined what they mean by educated lame. And obviously we're not meant to take educated lame literally, because if these guys are lame, then that's their problem. They're lame. So I'm just going to go with the definition that I remember from back in the Gen X days. All right, so basically the complaint of so-called educated lames is that they're being passed over by women in favor of thugs, at least when they're young, and then after the women have been run through and used up and abused by the thugs, they want to come to the educated lames later on in life and have the educated lames pick up their slack, take care of the kids that they had by the thugs, get them out of the debt that they got from supporting thugs, stuff like that. Basically a cleanup man or a Captain Save-A-Ho, as they stated. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. These men are complaining, for lack of a better word, that in their younger years, women are passing over them in favor of thugs. I'm going to be rather frank and say that a lot of these educated lame guys have an ego problem. They have identified a characteristic about themselves that they feel should make them the most desirable men, yet and still they are being outbid for women by quote-unquote lesser men. Now, even though I say you have an ego problem, I understand where you're coming from. You sacrificed, you delayed pleasure, you studied really hard, you worked really hard to accomplish something that most people will never accomplish. And you feel you should be rewarded for that. So I get that. And I definitely understand how it can make you salty if you think you're the better choice and yet somehow somebody else edged you out. But the reason I call it an ego thing is because it's similar to what racist white guys do. They put all their stock in being white. And then when they walk down the street and see a beautiful white woman with a black guy, it really messes with their head, because they're like, I'm white. Why would she choose that over me? Justified or not, it's ego.
Now, listening to her almost sounds like I'm listening to Deborah Cooper. You hear all the shaming language come out about what you are and how everything is your fault. But she said she was going to give a definition for an educated lame, but she didn't. So I'll give one here. An educated lame, for lack of a better term, is an educated square. Now, lame and square are very vast terms. And it could be anything from nerdy and goofy all the way up to just somebody that doesn't have black swag. And there's a lot of blue collar guys that are considered lame. But the angst or the viciousness are basically pointed toward educated lames because they talk different. They act different. They act smart because they are. That's nothing new in the black community, especially if you're in the black community. If you're smart and you talk different, you talk educated, you're going to be what? Teased and picked on, and sometimes even beat up if you're a guy. Literally, you're a square peg in a round hole. Now, she talks about not being picked in your younger years, which is something that not only ELs or educated lames say, but also a lot of blue collars guys say. You don't have money. You don't have swag. You don't look like the guy on TV or in the rap video. You're that boring workaday dude trying to build himself up and build up his career. That goes for blue collar guys that are into the trades and also the lames that are building up their corporate career or starting a business. You're no fun. You're working 6 days a week. You're working a lot of hours. Don't have a lot of time. And like Cyndi Lauper says, girls just want to have fun. So if you're not out there running the streets, tricking off your money, then girls ain't checking for you. They're going to run around with the fun guys, the guys that are tricking off their money, going to happy hour, taking them out into expensive restaurants or taking them on trips here and there, or even the Madden Kings who sit at home doing what she says and waiting on her beck and call. Now, the educated lames have an added angst with the community, or at least in the urban environment, is that not only do not the women like them, but the community itself treats them like they're lepers for the most part. They look at you and treat you like you don't belong, which in a sense, if you're educated in the white school system or the Prussian school system as we have to be something that America wants, I guess in the black community, you don't fit. A lot of times women blame men for responding to what they put out. Now, she blames the educated lame's ego is the same as being a white man for the problems that they go through as far as with women. You see a pretty girl on her arm, on the arm of a thug, so to speak, which I don't know why that would surprise you, that a pretty girl is on the arm of a thug when you've seen that from middle school on. I don't know why that would shock you. They treat educated lames like they went from 10 years old to 30 years old, and all of a sudden they just came out with all this genius whole cloth, and they're inexperienced. No, they've been seeing that since they were coming up. They know what the game is. What the educated lames have a problem with is that the media and women especially get on social media and media particularly and lie. They always say that the educated lame is exactly the kind of guy that they're looking for. And it causes some dissonance in their brain when they see one of their colleagues, and trust me, it's a whole lot of y'all out there, one of their colleagues on the arm of somebody who they have been told is lesser than they are. Is it ego? Yeah, partially. Is it the same thing when that educated lame can't find a black woman and is successful and has a white woman on his arm? Do black women feel the same way? I think they do. Is that black woman's ego? Is it black woman's ego to start calling that educated lame a coon, a thug, a race traitor, a sellout, an Oreo, a self-hater, a race hater, amongst other things? We conveniently leave that out when we talk about ELs, or these thinking black men who have finally overcome. It's really interesting when black women have a one-sided worldview. They can see what you did, but they can't see what they've done to cause it. Anyway, continuing.
Another thing, being educated doesn't excuse you from having to be attractive to women. And you guys should understand that, and I'm going to tell you why. When educated black women were waving their degrees around and saying, I don't have any kids, I don't have any debt, yada, 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 I'm a good catch. And yet you guys pass over me and go marry that floozy who works in a call center. And the black guy's response was, I'm sorry, she's pretty. I mean, I don't want to have sex with your degree. I want to have sex with her, and I want to wife her up. So I'm sorry, you're just not attractive. Your degree does not make you pretty. Well, sir, your degree does not make you attractive to women. Okay, so what does make you attractive to women? Things that are tied to some kind of biological need or desire. So if you want to attract a woman, let's just say you could use 3 things. 1, you could use your looks. 2, you could use your personality. Or 3, you could use money. All 3 of those are based in biology. Obviously, a man with money can provide. Women are hardwired to seek out men who can provide for a family. Let's move on to looks. Looks serves a purpose. Women want attractive children. And it just goes without saying that humans are attracted to humans that are attractive. And when I say looks, I'm not just talking about being attractive in the face. I'm talking about having a nice body, being built, being muscular, being very masculine. Very masculine men are attractive to women. All right, on to the next thing. Personality. People who are very outgoing, people who are charismatic, people who have swagger, they are very attractive, just like people who are physically attractive. Also, women like men who have a lot of authority. Men who are assertive, maybe even a little aggressive, or a lot aggressive. Also, women like men who have power, which you can lump in with attitude, or you can lump it in with money and do like money/power. But either way, women like men who are in charge. If you have the power to persuade people, the power to get people on your side, the power to get people to like you, then of course you're not going to have a problem attracting women. Now, some people might want to lump education in with money and providing, but having an education does not necessarily mean that you make good money. I know a lot of college graduates that found out all too late that degree wasn't the golden ticket that it's made out to be. Plus, they're not calling themselves rich lames, they're calling themselves educated lames. Higher education isn't necessarily tied to something biological. Yes, humans have always learned, but back in the hunter-gatherer days, what you needed to learn was how to hunt and gather. So like the boys went off with their fathers to learn how to hunt, and the girls stayed with their mothers to learn how to cook the food once their fathers brought it home. This whole thing of sitting in a classroom for however many hours a day and taking exams and all that, on the timeline of humanity, that's a relatively new thing. Cave women didn't choose men based on degrees. Primitive tribes in Africa and other places around the world don't choose their men based on quote-unquote education in the sense that you mean it, like having degrees and stuff. They might choose mates based on who can gather the most food, or who's the strongest, or who's the chief's son, who's the chief's daughter, stuff like that.
What's the old saying? Never bring a knife to a gunfight. The same thing applies here. Never bring feelings to a fact fight. Now, what she has done is brought her feelings to a fact fight. You can see her own personal angst is coming out in her video. She's comparing educated lames, so to speak, with educated females. They're not the same thing. We're scored on 2 different scales. Women are scaled on looks and personality, and men are scaled on resources, assertiveness, and masculinity. Now, as far as the degree is concerned, nobody ever told black women that their degree meant something to black men. Your mother and the women around her told you to get your degree and get your education so that you could provide for yourself, not to get a man. Now, back in the day, they sent you to college to get your MRS degree before you left college, not after. I see very few personal ads or dating profiles with men asking for women with PhDs. But I see a whole lot of black women complaining and in their personal dating ads talking about they need men on their level. They need a man to be educated. They need a man with a degree that can match their educational attainment. So now she's very eloquent the way she says it, but backward logic spoken eloquently is still backwards logic. You cannot grade a man and a man's desires on what you want. I'm a catch because I have a degree. And the first thing a man will say is, so what? I didn't ask you about your degree. Because at the end of the day, you're not spending that degree money on me. So that floozy in the call center looks better and has a better personality, is more submissive, is a better catch for what he wants, if he wants a wife. Like they said little girl said in Insecure, ain't nobody checking for no bitter ass black women anymore. Now, to bolster her argument, she engages in sideways logic, saying that if a man wants to attract a woman, he needs looks, he needs personality or assertiveness, and or the trump card, which is money, resources. Now, why she feels that she needs to talk down to grown men that have experienced this and known this damn near their whole life, I don't know. 5 seconds on any dating app, you find that out. If you had asked any woman out on a date and have been turned down or been rebuffed, you quickly find that out. Men approach. Why do you think educated lames have nice suits, big houses, and big old nice cars when they actually get their money on? Evidently, they already know what they need to have to attract a woman. So coming back with an old argument that ELs can find out in any red pill site or pick up any book that will tell them exactly the same thing. Hell, if they listen to any female dating expert or anybody on YouTube, you'll find out the same thing. All women say exactly the same thing about the man they want, especially black women. Anyway, continuing.
Just a little side note, even though money does attract women, I wouldn't suggest that you lead with that because you're more likely to attract gold diggers and very shallow women. But the point still remains that money is a way that you can attract women. So what you need to do, or what you needed to do, was set aside your education for a moment and ask yourself, if I didn't have this education or this degree, what else would attract women to me? If you don't have anything to fill in that blank, that there is your problem. You're an unattractive guy with a degree, just like those black women were ugly chicks with degrees, or at least so you said. Just a little side note, am I saying educated women can't be pretty? No. However, if an educated woman was pretty like that, then she'd be in the pretty girl category. You'd be a pretty girl who's also educated. But if you're leading with your education, if your big shtick is, I'm an educated woman, then you're probably leaning on that because your looks have failed to distinguish you from others. So you're falling back to your education to try to separate yourself from the pack. Pretty women don't get passed over whether they're educated or not. Let me tell you something. If you ever heard of Asperger's, basically that's a high-functioning autistic person. A lot of those people are very smart and even get college degrees and stuff, but their social skills are so underdeveloped that they're still very unattractive to women. So just being smart and just being educated isn't enough. You have to be attractive. I'm not just talking about the physical. I'm talking about you better have something that attracts women. Money, looks, attitude. One of the three, all three of the three, something. Now, here's another reason why I say it's ego. For every educated lame out there, there is a female counterpart, and there may even be more. Why aren't you going after her? And please do not tell me it's because all of them are also going after the thugs. First of all, thugs don't want them. Thugs want the hot girls. Now, I know it does happen sometimes. When I was in college, I knew a few girls who were going to school to be teachers, doctors, lawyers, whatever, but they had some thug hood boyfriend. I know it happens, but don't tell me it's all of them. Is it that there aren't any educated lame females available, or is it that you don't want them? Now, I'm guessing you want the pretty girls. Well, the pretty girls want pretty guys. They want buff guys. They want charismatic guys. They want guys with money. All right, so you guys are complaining that thugs are getting the women you want. Well, what's so special about these women? Are they the best women? What makes them the best? Do they have high moral character? Well, if they're dating thugs, that's kind of questionable. So what's making them the best? Is it that they're pretty? Are you lusting after these women for any other reason other than they're pretty and have a banging body? I'm asking you. Yes, I know men are attracted to pretty women, and that's tied to something biological. But you can't complain about women choosing a thug who is masculine, got money, and is good looking. I'm not saying he has all three, but has at least one of the three. You can't complain about women choosing that guy over you, and then you turn around and choose women solely based on them being pretty and ignore the fact that they may have some character flaws if they're choosing thug men. If they're not making good choices, they should be off your list. But I understand why they're not. But they should be.
Now, she continues to repeat the same trope, the same facts over and over again. Money looks power that women are attracted to, which makes sense, even though they don't actually admit that's what they're attracted to, because they keep spitting out that stuff that they want a man on their level. In other words, be what I want or shut up. Now, what's interesting in this clip is that she talks about the nerdy girl aspect of it, which is another, I would think, lie. Now, for some educated lames that are in the urban environment, that is very true. A lot of women, mostly black women, want some guy to thug or guy with some kind of edge to him, because that's the environment that they're in. And this generation has made the baller or the guy with the swagger the gold standard. Is what it is. But the nerdy girl, who may not check for the thugs, who might not like thugs, and thugs might reject them, has no bearing on when an educated lame goes after them, that they're checking for you. See what I mean? Women only tell half the story. Everything that goes on is your fault. Now, she acts like there's this massive amount of nerdy girls in college and whatnot, running after these educated lames when they're younger. And I can tell you that it's unequivocal bullshit. There are no hordes of nerdy girls or even unattractive girls running after educated lames. There are not. Black men have the widest standard of acceptance of looks and attitude on the planet. So if all these educated girls, pretty or not, were checking for these dudes, you wouldn't hear these dudes complain. You only hear the nerdy girl argument when the educated lames get their money up and get their status up, like when they're in their late 20s and their 30s. And when they're getting ready to jump the fence, or they're picking a lighter skinned girl or better looking girl. And then all of a sudden the nerdy girls say that you ignored us when we were in school. No, the ELs didn't ignore you in school. It's the guys that you wanted ignoring you in school. So the ELs are not just rejected by the women that like thugs. They're also rejected by the women that don't like them. There are more guys out there than just thugs. In fact, thugs make a very small percentage of black men. Nerdy girls chase the frat boys. Nerdy girls chase the athletes. Nerdy girls chase the good-looking working class guy. Shirley is chasing the same guy that Keisha's chasing. Keisha take a blue-collar guy or a regular guy with money and some swag the same way Shirley would take a blue-collar guy with some money and some swag. And they'll take a frat boy, or they'll take an athlete. You're all chasing for the same pool of guys. They don't all have to be thugs. So you ask, how come you don't go after the nerdy girls or the girls that the thugs don't like? Well, most guys probably have gone after them, but they've been rejected. But let me tell you a secret about nerdy girls. Nerdy girls don't date thugs and have thugs on their arms in the daytime. But there's a whole lot of thugs and a whole lot of guys like that creep in at midnight and leave at 5 a.m. Them educated nerdy girls won't tell you that they're sleeping with these guys because they're too embarrassed to bring them out in public. But guess what? Whole lot of guys that were thugs and what we considered low-class guys banged a whole lot of you nerdy girls out there. But that's a well-kept secret, or even though it's not such a well-kept secret. You just don't want the nerdy guys to know because you're still banking on them when you get 30 years old. That won't come out. But that's just between me and you. Continuing.
And now I want to address this argument that I hear some black guys make that, black women didn't want them when they were struggling to get through school or, struggling to build their business or yada, yada, yada. And now that they're successful, a lot of black women are interested in them. And some black guys take it a step further and say, well, since black women didn't want me then, I don't want you now, and I'm going to date whatever other race. I feel men who say this feel guilty about dating outside their race and they looking for a reason to justify it. You don't have to justify it, but since you feel guilty about it, you think you have to. But anyway, my answer would be when you were in school or struggling to build that business, you didn't have anything that was attractive to women. And I'm not talking about money because I talked about three things. You didn't have charisma, you probably weren't that good looking, and you didn't have money. Now that you established yourself and you're older, you've got the money, which is attractive to women. Perhaps you start going to the gym and bulked yourself up, which is attractive to women. You can't really do anything about your face, but that is what it is. And then maybe in the process of building a business or going through school, you developed a personality. You learn to be more assertive. You're essentially a different person than you were back then. And all these white women and Hispanic women who are all over you now, would they have wanted you back then? And if you had been what you are now back then, would black women have wanted you? That's the question you need to ask. But you're not going to ask it. Also, maybe the fact that you didn't attract as many women in your younger years was a blessing in disguise because you didn't end up getting sidetracked, like possibly getting a baby or, somebody getting you mixed up in some bull crap or, you end up getting in a fight over her or something or, whatever, any number of things that can go wrong when you have women in your life. So, if things turn out in the end, I don't even see what you're complaining about. But, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say. And don't get me wrong, it sucks that, somebody who's got their lives together, at least headed in the right direction, has to compete with somebody who is selling drugs or committing crimes, stuff like that. That sucks. I'm not saying for a minute that it's not reasonable for you to expect to be picked over them. I'm just saying that you still have to be attractive to women. Even if you are doing the right thing, even if you're educated, even if you're a great guy, you still have to do things to be attractive to women. And whether that stems from what you are, who you are, or what you can provide, you're going to have something that attracts women. That's all I got to say. Add your...
Now, this is slightly condescending. You're acting like these guys, the educated lames, were virgins from the time that they hit puberty to the time that they got their money or the time that they got developed, like around, their late 20s, early 30s. Like they were building themselves up in the dark and nobody was checking for them. And they were in this silo by themselves doing their work and doing their gigs. And they weren't looking for women. They were basically holding their nuts for 15 years until they could finally explode out onto the scene, which is not true. Most of the guys that date interracially, and you can go back and you can listen to any of the guys that, especially educated lames that dated interracially, they will tell you that the reason they don't check for black women is because black women didn't want them then. But other races did. So the Latina and the white woman or the white girls that were in their sphere, especially in college or when they were developing their corporate careers or their businesses, the only women that were actually checking for them that would actually give them a chance were the Latinas, the Asians, or the white women. There was nothing for the black women to hold on to. They didn't have looks, they didn't have swag, and they didn't have money. Their own women showed them no loyalty. The black women rebuffed and rejected them. So what did these particular guys do? They went to where they were accepted. They were given a chance. I don't know how many times I've heard that a nerdy guy, and I've seen it because I went to a white school. There's certain guys that were nerdy. Even the nerdy black women would reject them. They were not handsome. They talked funny, and they were considered strange by the black folks that went to the school. But guess who accepted them? The nerdy white girls. The nerdy white girls approached them. The nerdy white girls dated them. The nerdy white girls slept with them. So who do you expect that they're going to marry when they actually get their education and get their money up? It ain't rocket science, Cupcake. If you're going to give an argument, tell both sides of the story. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight. Now, could it be a blessing in disguise that that a lot of women weren't checking for you, so that couldn't get you in trouble like most of the popular guys? Perhaps. You didn't get sidetracked? Perhaps. But where was that black woman, that nerdy black girl that was doing the same thing that could have helped you along because she was doing the same thing? Nah, she was interested in the popular guy, the hot guy. Now, does it suck? Sure it does. Does it suck that the women that you preferred, or the women that were in your area, preferred the guy that had swag, had money, that was selling drugs and doing all kinds of dastardly things, that was causing drama in women's lives and also in the neighborhood? Sure, it sucks. And it sends a powerful message. It sends a powerful message that this is not the community for you, because you don't have a place in it, because the gold standard is that guy. So you need to go where you are the gold standard. And a lot of guys do. But what gives black men angst and black educated lames angst is that now, when they have gotten their money up and they are popular and they do have something going for them that attracts women, now you come with shaming tactics. Now you come with the name calling. Now you come in with the guilt trip that says you need to come back and help your community. What, the community that didn't want you? Come back and help the women that didn't pick you? That 10 years after the fact, that the black women, the black nerdy women, are going to come wave their degrees and the fact that they don't have any children in your face and say, you pick me, pick me, pick me? It's called loyalty. You didn't show any to him. And whether women like it or not, even thugs want loyalty. A pretty girl with a banging body is no good if she doesn't show you any loyalty. She's a booty call just like everybody else. And what the nerdy girls don't want to admit, that you spit on these guys when they were young. That's the problem. You don't want to admit that shit. No, I was checking for you. You just weren't chasing me. That's bullshit. That's why come all the ELs laugh. That's bullshit. All the girls rejected them. The nerdy girls, along with their hot girlfriends, because that's what they were trying to be. They wanted to be the hot girls, just like the cheerleaders and the special girls. They wanted to be like that. They didn't want to be square pegs. So you rejected the nerdy guys and waited in line so that maybe, just maybe, one of these guys that was selected would actually pick you. Most of them went through y'all just like they went through everybody else. Women are famous for rewriting history. They just are. But I'm going to give a closing rant real fast. A lot of this stuff that's going on is about race loyalty after the fact. You expect guys that you hurt to get over it, suck it up, and accept what's offered to you. Because 10, 15 years after the fact, these are the guys that you need if you want your lives and your communities to get better. And if you can't hold on to these guys, then your careers, your communities are in trouble. Because there's a whole lot of white guys that ain't checking for you. And if you want guys on your level, white guys, Mexican guys, or whatever, Asian guys or whatever, you're going to have to pick nerdy white guys or nerdy Hispanic guys or nerdy Asian guys that are way below the level of the black men that you're picking. And the bottom line is that no matter what you say, no matter how you try to put it, you don't really want these nerdy guys. You want their resources. You want their stability. They know that. They're not stupid. They know that if they married you and had kids by you, and that hot dude that you always wanted came along, slinging his 9 inches, and actually came and got with you, you'd abandon that educated lame in a heartbeat. You would. You just would. Or you sneak behind his back and do it anyway, right? They know that. That's why they stick with the women that accepted them back when they were young. It is what it is. It's nobody's fault. And just like you say, you have to do something or have something that's attracted to women. Or, as I say, you got to find women that are attracted to what you have. Because you're educated doesn't mean anything in the black community. It doesn't. Not to black women. But it happens to mean a lot to white women and Asian women because that's potential, and they're willing to do what? Bank on potential. The standard of what their guys should look like and act like is not the same as it is with black women. White women don't necessarily want a highly aggressive guy. Most of them don't. And definitely most Asians don't want a highly aggressive guy, at least not to settle down with and marry. So they're willing to invest their time and their energy in a guy that's not that. So that's why you see educated lames jumping the fence and leaving the community and draining the resources in their brains and their talents out and leaving the black community as that dried husk that it is, and leaving these educated, nerdy women as spinsters for the rest of their lives. But that's not what's spoken about. That's not what's talked about, at least not with women. And the best thing that women can do is actually come out and admit the truth. Don't give us these half-truths. Don't give us these fairy tales. Don't try to rewrite history because we're all there. And basically don't try to invalidate our own experience. Guys approach. Guys look. They see who you're rejecting. They see who you rebuff. It's something that is seared in their brains for the rest of their life. So saying that they're lying and invalidating their experience is not going to work, especially after they get 30 and they get established. Educated lames are like elephants. They got long memories. They do not forget, and they do not forgive. Karma's a bitch sometimes, and black women have a lot of karma to make up for. Anyway, that's my argument on educated lames, the ugly girl argument for men. That's all I got. Until next time, this is BGS out.